You've probably heard that old saying, right? That a rising tide lifts all boats.
Oh, yeah, the classic economic comfort blanket.
Right. It's a very comforting thought. You look at the broader macroeconomic picture, GDP goes up, innovation is surging, and there's just this general assumption that, well, everyone is kind of floating up together.
Yeah, that's the theory. Anyway.
But, and this is the core of what we're talking about today, what happens when that tide starts? Like lifting the luxury yachts, but actively sinking all the dinghies.
Well, then you get a severe structural divergence. I mean, the whole illusion of a unified economy just completely breaks in half.
And that fracturing is exactly what we are exploring today in this deep dive. Specifically, we're looking at the reality of Europe right now. We are staring down the barrel of massive artificial intelligence integration combined with these really massive climate-driven transitions.
Yeah, it's a lot hitting all at once.
Exactly. And the economic landscape is literally cracking beneath people's feet. So our mission today, we're going to explore a genuinely fascinating document from April 2026. This comes straight from EON AI Ventures.
Right.
And it details this highly systematic framework that they're calling the Sovereign Human Initiative.
It's quite a title.
It really is. And the stated goal here is figuring out how Europe's middle class can actually survive and potentially thrive, even when these technological shifts are just permanently altering the job market.
I mean, it is an incredibly dense, comprehensive blueprint. If you are trying to understand the intersection of automation, the green energy revolution, and, just the future of work in general,
yeah,
this document lays out the actual mechanics of how a society might actively engineer a way out of an employment crisis.
Yeah.
Instead of just waiting around for the fallout.
Right, which is what normally happens. Now, before we really get into the weeds here, we need to be crystal clear for you listening. We are looking at this strictly through the lens of EON's own blueprint.
Yes, very important distinction.
Right, like we aren't endorsing this company or saying their proposed solution is some guaranteed flawless fix. We're impartially exploring the highly specific tech-driven argument they are making in the source material.
And to really understand their proposed solution, we have to deeply understand the exact nature of the problem that is threatening Europe's workforce right now.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the document describes Europe as being trapped in a K-shaped economy.
Right, and the K-shape is a critical economic concept to visualize. If you picture the letter K, you have one line going sharply up and another line going sharply down.
And they both start from the exact same point in time.
Exactly.
According to the data in this report, that upward line, that represents the corporations. Companies are currently seeing an average 11.5% AI-driven productivity gain.
Which is huge.
It is a massive, immediate boost to their bottom line.
Yeah.
They're doing significantly more with less. But the downward line on that K, that represents the human workers who are facing displacement.
And the friction between those two diverging lines is just immense. We are looking at a scenario where corporate efficiency is skyrocketing, right?
Yeah.
While the traditional workforce is simultaneously finding itself, well, entirely redundant.
And the statistics they provide in the source to back this up are just staggering. Right now, 77% of EU firms are reporting critical skills gaps.
77%.
Yeah. They literally cannot find the people they need. But at the exact same time, and this is the wild part, the youth unemployment rate in the EU is sitting at 14.5%.
It creates a maddening paradox for policymakers.
Mm.
I mean, you have companies desperate for talent, and yet there are massive amounts of people without jobs. The supply of human capital and the demand for technical execution have completely decoupled.
Decoupled. That's a great word for it. And when you look at the AI task exposure across different industries, I mean, no one is really safe. Like if you're listening to this and you work in a white-collar job, you probably assume you have a buffer, right?
A lot of people do.
But listen to these exposure percentages from the source. Software and IT services are at a 65% exposure.
Which is incredibly counterintuitive for a lot of people.
Right.
You'd assume the tech workers, the people actually building the software, are the safe ones. But I mean, AI is writing code now. It's debugging. It's basically automating the automation.
Yeah, and it doesn't stop there. Financial services are at 62% AI task exposure. Insurance is at 58%. Marketing and media, 55%.
Wow.
Even physical manufacturing operations are sitting at 48%. And the source points to a very tangible, real-world example of this K-shaped fracturing. They highlight Germany's automotive industry.
Yes.
The document explicitly describes it as a dual disruption.
The dual disruption in Germany is just a perfect storm to analyze. Because on one hand, you have the macro shift from internal combustion engines to electric vehicles.
Right, the green transition.
Exactly. And that alone is a seismic event. I mean, electric vehicles fundamentally have fewer moving parts. They require less manual labor to assemble. They rely on entirely different supply chains.
And they demand completely different engineering skills from the workforce.
Precisely. That's disruption number one.
But then, at the exact same time, disruption number two hits them. AI-driven automation on the factory floors and in the back office logistics.
So you have a legacy workforce that is suddenly, well, trained to build the wrong kind of vehicle, right? And they're operating in modernized factories that need half the human headcount anyway.
It's brutal.
The job losses just compound at multiple levels simultaneously.
Which brings us to the human cost, which the document frames as a literal breaking point for Europe's social contract. You have thousands of workers losing their jobs, but their fixed costs aren't changing.
No, the bills keep coming.
Exactly. The source explicitly calls out the reality of 1,500 to 2,500 euro monthly mortgages, alongside, private education expenses and just basic living costs.
Yeah, the inflation doesn't stop.
It's like, I was thinking about this. It's like an elevator system, right? Where the corporation takes the express car straight to the penthouse of productivity, but the workers are stuck in the lobby.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
And the stairs have been removed, and the fire escape is padlocked.
What's fascinating here is, if we look closely at the data, the core issue preventing those workers from finding a new path isn't just a simple lack of open jobs.
Right.
The real bottleneck on a macro scale is a credential mismatch.
Okay, say more about that.
Well, it's a structural flaw in how we validate human capability. You see, these displaced auto workers have decades of experience, deep institutional knowledge, and established work ethics.
Right, they know how to work hard.
Exactly. But those specific legacy skills simply don't fit the rigid, hyper-specific requirements of the new AI-era industries. They have a key to a door that doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, man.
Meanwhile, 77% of companies are standing in front of brand new doors, complaining they can't find anyone with the right key.
Which brings us perfectly to EON AI Ventures' proposed solution. Because since the traditional corporate ladder, that express elevator is leaving workers behind, this source introduces a really radical pivot in how we define a worker's role in the entire economy.
Yes.
They are calling it the Sovereign Human Initiative. And the core philosophy here is empowering these displaced professionals to become what they call sovereign proprietors.
And that terminology is very deliberate.
Sovereign proprietor.
Right. Sovereignty implies absolute autonomy, control, and self-determination over your own economic output.
The goal here is to make individuals active innovators and value creators in the Industry 4.0 economy. And for you listening, when we say Industry 4.0, we are talking about the fourth industrial revolution.
Right, the deep integration of smart digital technology.
Exactly. The Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, directly integrated into manufacturing and industrial processes. The initiative wants to turn passive employees into active players in that specific arena.
It's a huge shift.
There's a quote in the document from Dan Ledgerskar. He's the chairman of EON AI Ventures that I think really captures the ambition here. He says, the transformation of Europe's workforce is not just a response to technological disruption. It is the foundation of a new social contract.
It really is a profound reframing of labor. Because a traditional employment contract is inherently dependent.
Yeah.
You rent out your time and your physical or cognitive skills to a single entity. And if that entity decides an AI software suite can do your job 11.5% faster and infinitely cheaper, well, your rental agreement is terminated.
You just out.
Exactly. This initiative proposes a foundational shift where the worker owns their economic output directly and implements it across multiple clients.
Okay, here's where I need to push back a little bit on behalf of anyone listening who might be skeptical. Because here is where I have a major point of friction with the source material.
Let's hear it.
Is the solution really to just tell a laid-off 50-year-old auto worker that they have to become an entrepreneur overnight? I mean, that feels like tossing someone into the deep end of the ocean without a life vest.
It does sound intimidating.
We just talked about the crushing pressure of a 1,500 euro monthly mortgage, saying, hey, sorry you lost your job at the plant, go build a tech startup. Seems like an incredibly heavy, almost irresponsible burden to place on the middle class.
I agree completely. If this were just an ideological push for raw Silicon Valley startup culture, it
Yeah.
would absolutely be a disaster.
Right, like just hustle harder.
Telling people to just hustle harder doesn't pay a mortgage. But the methodology outlined in the initiative isn't about traditional entrepreneurship.
Okay.
It is an exercise in highly calculated structural deployment. They are attempting to give individuals highly specific AI-driven tools to own their economic value, effectively removing the traditional risks of starting a business from scratch.
Okay, scaffolding is great, but businesses fail all the time. The failure rate for new businesses is famously high. If I'm that unemployed worker, how does a structural deployment actually prevent me from going bankrupt while I try to find clients in an Industry 4.0 landscape that I barely even understand?
That is the crucial transition point in the document. You don't just hand them a registered business license and wish them luck.
Right.
You have to build an end-to-end pipeline that handles the training, the credentialing, and the actual client acquisition. The initiative outlines 4 specific mechanisms, they call them pillars, to mass-produce these sovereign proprietors without exposing them to the raw volatility of the open market.
Let's dig into how those 4 mechanisms actually work, because logically, before someone can sell an Industry 4.0 service, they have to actually acquire the skill, right? They have to know how to do the job.
Absolutely.
The first pillar is focused entirely on that. It's their AI-powered learning systems. The source describes this as using customized, globally accredited learning paths that integrate immersive intelligence.
And immersive intelligence is the differentiator here. We are talking about spatial computing, utilizing augmented and virtual reality, heavily guided by an AI tutor.
So this directly addresses that credential mismatch we discussed earlier.
Yes.
But how does that actually work in practice? I mean, how does waving your hands around in a VR headset translate to learning a highly technical industrial skill faster than traditional training?
It all comes down to cognitive load and real-time error correction.
Okay.
If you are reading a manual on how to maintain a new electric vehicle battery system, your brain has to translate abstract text into physical movements. It's slow and prone to catastrophic error.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But with immersive intelligence, you are inside a high-fidelity digital twin of that exact battery system. You learn by doing, utilizing muscle memory.
Wow.
And because the environment is monitored by AI, if you reach for the wrong, highly volatile component in the simulation, the AI tutor stops you instantly. It explains the error, and it forces you to repeat the motion correctly.
That's incredible.
It accelerates the rate at which an adult brain acquires complex, hands-on technical skills by removing the abstract translation phase entirely.
Okay, so spatial computing solves the learning curve. They have the skill. But, and this is but having a skill in a digital vacuum doesn't pay that mortgage.
Right.
How do they actually monetize it without going bankrupt? That brings up the initiative's second mechanism, the Venture Builder Economy Framework. And this seems specifically designed to address my pushback about the dangers of forced entrepreneurship.
It acts as the operational safety net. The Venture Builder pillar provides the continuous AI mentorship required to navigate modern business challenges.
So they aren't just out there on their own.
Exactly. It gives the worker the blueprints, the automated back-office tools, and the strategic guidance to run a hyper-efficient microenterprise.
Oh, wow.
They don't have to guess how to format an invoice, manage supply chains, or draft a service-level agreement. The platform handles all that administrative friction.
But, Europe isn't a monolith. You have 27 different member states. If an auto worker in Germany uses this system to master an entirely new green energy installation process, they are still limited by their local geography.
Which logically leads to the third pillar.
Right, the Global Diploma Alliance.
The mobility aspect of this cannot be overstated. You see, the European Union operates as a single market for goods, but historically, professional credentials and technical certifications haven't always crossed borders smoothly.
Yeah, I can imagine.
There's massive bureaucratic friction.
And the document states the explicit goal of this alliance is removing those mobility barriers across all 27 EU member states through standardized Industry 4.0 credentials.
So if you retrain that displaced worker in Germany, their new AI-verified certification needs to be instantly valid, legally recognized, and entirely trusted if they want to apply those skills to a green energy infrastructure project in Spain or Italy or France.
That makes total sense.
Standardizing the credentials basically turns the entire European continent into a liquid, frictionless job market for these newly minted sovereign proprietors.
Okay, so we have the training, the business administration safety net, and the cross-border legal recognition. The final piece of the puzzle is actual market integration.
Right.
Like, who are they selling these skills to? That is the fourth pillar, the VAR network, or value-added reseller network. The graduates of this EON program don't just learn new skills and then blindly cold call companies.
No, not at all.
They actually become the official economic implementers of EON technology in their local markets.
It is a highly calculated deployment strategy. EON is essentially building its own decentralized distribution network. The graduates become the critical nodes.
Wow, that's smart.
They learn the advanced technology, and then they are positioned to sell and implement that same technology to local legacy businesses that desperately need to modernize but don't have the internal expertise to do it.
Right.
It provides immediate economic integration. You aren't just a guy with a VR certificate. You are an authorized implementation partner.
Now, bringing all four of these mechanisms together results in a metric in the document that absolutely stopped me in my tracks.
I know exactly which one you mean.
Yeah. Through this structured system, the initiative aims to deliver a 90 to 99% reduction in education and job transition costs.
That is a number that demands intense scrutiny.
A 90 to 99% reduction. I mean, let's really think about what that means. If a traditional university degree or a high-end technical retraining program costs 50,000 euros, a 99% reduction drops that cost to 500 euros.
Staggering.
If an AI native learning system can reduce the cost of transitioning into a new, highly paid career by that magnitude, what does this mean for the traditional university system? Are traditional degrees about to become completely obsolete?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you are hitting on the exact fault line of modern education.
Yeah.
A traditional university model bundles three distinct things: education, professional networking, and institutional prestige.
Okay.
But in a fracturing K-shaped economy, where 77% of firms are screaming for highly specific, cutting-edge AI implementation skills, the legacy prestige of a 4-year degree is rapidly losing its premium.
Wow.
The Global Diploma Alliance implies a definitive shift away from that legacy prestige toward hyper-efficient, standardized, borderless certification.
Because employers don't care if you spent 4 years walking across a beautiful campus with ivy on the brick walls.
No, they don't.
They care if you have the verified, immediately actionable skills to implement Industry 4.0 solutions today.
Precisely. The market is demanding absolute competency, not just a signal of generalized intelligence.
And that demand for absolute verifiable competency brings us to the underlying technology powering this entire framework. Because to achieve a 99% cost reduction and effectively retrain millions of displaced professionals across 27 different countries using AI tutors, the underlying technology has to be flawless. It can't just be a neat parlor trick or a flashy demo. We have to ask, who is actually building this infrastructure, and why should anyone trust their technological capability?
Exactly. Because a grand, continent-spanning vision requires serious, proven execution capability. And the source provides vital background on EON AI Ventures that contextualizes their position in the market.
The document highlights that the leadership behind EON AI Ventures actually founded EON Reality.
Yes.
That means they have over 25 years of institutional experience, specifically focused on immersive learning and XR extended reality solutions.
That's a massive advantage.
Yeah. They aren't a brand new startup that just discovered generative AI 6 months ago and decided to pivot into education.
25 years is an absolute eternity in the technology sector. It means they aren't guessing. They have decades of proprietary data on human-computer interaction, spatial learning metrics, and how adult professionals actually absorb and retain complex technical information in virtual environments.
Right.
They are taking that deep, established XR foundation and layering advanced AI architecture directly on top of it.
The source outlines that they operate 2 main platform businesses to facilitate this massive transition. First is their enterprise AI platform, which handles operational intelligence and workforce performance metrics.
Okay.
And second is the virtual campus, or virtual compass, which is the engine enabling this massively scalable training, certification, and knowledge transfer for enterprises and governments globally.
Right.
But the document makes a very specific, very sharp point about their core differentiator in the current tech market. They state that generic AI delivers 80% quality, But high-stakes enterprise operations require 100% precision.
And this identifies the 80-20 problem plaguing the current AI boom.
Hmm.
We've all used consumer-grade generic AI models.
Oh, sure.
They are undeniably amazing at generating a marketing draft or giving you a general summary of a historical event. They get you 80% of the way there incredibly fast.
Yeah.
But they are probabilistic. They hallucinate. They confidently make mistakes.
Right. It's the difference between using AI to write a decent rough draft of an email to your boss, where 80% good is totally fine, you just fix a few typos and hit send, versus using AI to teach someone how to repair a high-voltage electric vehicle engine. You can't afford to be 80% right on the engine.
No, you really can't.
An 80% correct high-voltage engine repair isn't a learning curve, it's a legal accident. You need absolute 100% precision.
That distinction is paramount. An 80% correct email is a massive time saver. An 80% correct industrial implementation is a multi-million euro catastrophe.
Wow. Yeah.
And this is exactly why EON's 25 years in immersive XR matters so fundamentally to this initiative. They aren't building a generic chatbot that just guesses the next most likely word in a sentence.
Right.
They have built a specialized, highly constrained platform designed for high-stakes capability. When a displaced manufacturing worker is in an immersive virtual environment learning a new Industry 4.0 protocol, the underlying AI must deliver 100% factual precision.
Or else the whole thing falls apart.
Exactly. If it hallucinates even once, the entire global diploma alliance falls apart because the end employers will immediately lose trust in the certification.
That demand for 100% precision is the literal bedrock of the entire new social contract they are trying to forge. Let's trace the logic here, right? If the AI is perfectly precise, the immersive retraining is flawless.
Yes.
If the retraining is flawless, the sovereign proprietor can confidently implement the technology for a client.
Correct.
And if they can implement the technology safely and efficiently, they truly own their economic value, pay their mortgage, and escape the downward slope of that K-shaped economy.
It creates a closed-loop system of economic empowerment. But it is driven entirely by the demand for high-fidelity technological capability.
Right.
I mean, you cannot fake competence in Industry 4.0.
Which presents an incredibly ambitious, highly engineered vision for the future of work in Europe.
It really does.
We have covered a massive amount of ground today. For you listening, we've traced the very real threat of Europe's K-shaped economic crisis, where corporations are seeing 11.5% AI productivity gains while workers face displacement and a crushing structural credential mismatch.
Right.
We explored EON AI Ventures' Sovereign Human Initiative, breaking down the 4 specific mechanisms: the spatial AI learning, the Venture Builder Safety Net, the Borderless Global Diploma Alliance, and the VAR Local Implementation Network.
The full pipeline.
Exactly. These are the tools aimed at turning displaced employees into hyper-skilled, autonomous sovereign proprietors. And we examined the absolute requirement for 100% precision AI training to actually make this theoretical 99% reduction in transition costs a reality.
It is a demanding blueprint, and honestly, whether it succeeds or fails, it fundamentally challenges how we view labor. So, what stands out to you as you listen to this? Is it the radical shift in how we might acquire complex skills through spatial computing? Or is it the deeper psychological shift in how we must define our own value away from a traditional paycheck?
It's a lot to think about. I'll leave you with one final implication to mull over, building on everything we've unpacked today. If this VAR network actually succeeds at scale, if this framework successfully deploys millions of independent sovereign proprietors, all individually equipped with top-tier 100% precision AI capabilities across all 27 EU nations, what actually happens to the concept of the traditional corporation?
Oh, that is the ultimate disruptive question.
Right. If every individual becomes a hyper-efficient, self-contained tech hub capable of implementing enterprise-grade solutions on their own, do we even need large centralized companies in the future? Or does the entire economy just fracture and reform into a borderless, decentralized network of highly capable individuals trading services? If the Sovereign Human Initiative works, maybe we don't even need the corporate skyscraper anymore. Maybe that express elevator to the penthouse becomes completely irrelevant because the people in the lobby have just learned how to fly on their own.